Good afternoon, good evening to all of you out there in cyberspace. My name is Capt Kirk Skywalker, and this is the fourth in a series of video presentations I'm making to do my part to try and explain to the people of Earth out there why things are the way they are concerning our government's top secret relationship with extraterrestrials, contacts, and their various activities here on Earth. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to get into the main one that is of greatest importance to me, and is why I'm doing these presentations. I am stating that back in the year 1973, when I was only 14 years old, I was approached by a group of 4 people who claimed, well, at the time they called themselves the Pleiades, and at the times they said they were extraterrestrials, and they did tell me a few things about them and how they've been secretly living here on Earth over many centuries. They did also tell me their version of what happened concerning Roswell and a few other things about history. And they were very interesting people in a way. So I agreed to go with them, and I basically ran away from home and was taken to the United States Air Force Base. Now I was able to figure out I was on an Air Force Base because at the time of my travels I was in the very back end of this early model Volkswagen van. So it was late at night when we came up to this gated area where I got to see something I wasn't supposed to see, which was this military sentry on duty. This was kind of a backyard area to get onto this military base. And although the other people were dressed in beach clothing attire, they nevertheless had identification credentials and were able to answer certain questions put to them by the sentry. Once we got onto the main base area, that's when I saw exactly what they didn't want me to see, which was a row of B-52 bombers that were lined up wingtip to wingtip, and we got somewhat close to them. We drove behind them. And so we continued on our way. But at that point I realized I was definitely on an Air Force Base. Where we went, we finally went to this remote area at the far end of the base, got out of the van, and walked into a rather large cave entrance with very limited lighting. And it was at that point they told me I'd be introduced to, and I got to meet a Gray in person. They didn't let me talk to the Gray. It was just a very brief meeting. The purpose of the meeting was I was to give the Gray a sample of my blood, which was a prerequisite before being allowed to go onto one of their spaceships. So the Gray briefly appeared with some type of very large, type of unusual looking medical instrument, orange in color, very odd shape too. It was about 2 feet long, but I stuck out my forearm and he drew a small sample of my blood, and the Gray then left. I then continued on my way with these people, and then I was interviewed in front of an unusual looking video camera, where I was basically told to give my name, social security number, and my birth date. Now at the time I did not have a social security number, not back in 1973, but I told them that and a few other things about myself, and that was basically the end of this rather brief video interview. They then took me to another small, it was a very small area that I'll call it the cabin room. It was a very small replica of a mothership's cabin area, or cabin, where I was going to be spending all my time during my travels from planet Earth to another planet. The whole purpose of the recruiting was, they talked me into just going with them, but it was with the understanding that I would be taken to another planet, never to return. At the time, they were not that specific about why they wanted me to go with them. They just basically said, you're the type of person we're looking for, and I hope you'd be interested. Inside this cabin area most of the time, it was about the size of a walk-in closet, not too big at all. One side of it was a bed. At the end of the bed was a desk area, a couple of drawers, and above the desk area was a television screen. They said I'd be able to watch television during my travels, although they didn't tell me what I'd be watching on TV. There's also a small combination sink toilet area, and that was the extent of it. I later figured out that basically I was sort of undergoing a claustrophobia test, and I probably was under video surveillance while I was inside this small little area. There was no lock on the door, which I thought was another key thing I'd like to say. I think they were trying to evaluate how long I could handle being cooped up in such a small area. And I lasted only so long before I'd voluntarily just walk out the door and start walking around this tunnel area. I was just leaving. There wasn't anybody around to stop me at the time. Turns out they didn't have to, but I was briefly running in, having a few encounters with the short Grays, and I had brief conversations with them. I didn't get to learn too much about them like I wish I did, because it seems like one of my 4 recruiters, as I prefer to call them, would just show up out of nowhere, and he told me, you're not supposed to be talking to any of the Grays. And she would take me back to the cabin room area. So this went on for about 4.5 days. It was on the 5th day I decided I definitely did not want anything more to do with them or this whole situation. I told them I wanted to go back and be with my parents. And so it was basically arranged for me to return. They took me back, but not before they did certain things to me. I was basically given something to drink, which turned out to be some type of powerful tranquilizer. I felt real groggy and kind of tired, but I did not fall asleep. It was at that point that the Pleiades brought in a Gray. The Gray started having this telepathic conversation with me, and basically you could say it was a form of telepathic mind reading and hypnosis. I was being hypnotized by the Gray. The Gray would force me to recall what was happening to me over the last few days, and it was basically a form of hypnosis that I was not supposed to remember anything of my brief encounters with the Grays and these 4 people. I certainly was not supposed to remember that I was on Air Force Base. This was the major concern I heard my recruiters talking about. They didn't like the idea that I saw what I saw at the guard-gated area, and that I saw the B-52 bombers. That's another reason why I decided, well, are we going to take this guy or not? But getting back to what is this all about? Well, I feel as the agenda of these particular group of Pleiades was they were recruiting people as young as 13 years old to be taken to another planet to live out their lives there, to colonize other planets. And part of the agenda was they wanted to get people there choosing off this planet while there was still time before. Well, I feel that the Pleiades definitely know a lot about our future through their time travel capabilities. They know a lot about what ultimately is going to happen to planet Earth, and I think they also do know about the agreement reached back in the early 1950s under Eisenhower, and they knew what I've since figured out from all of my study of U2. I've gone to my share of UFO conventions. The agreement still stands. It was reached with Eisenhower that no matter what, come December of 2012, the ETs would come forward publicly from seclusion in a very big way. That happened during the daytime. It would involve the largest of their mother ships. And we can only hope that people would believe them when these people would get the opportunity to directly talk to the news media and tell their side of the story about a number of issues. And of course, my big concern, like so many other people in the UFO community, is the government's going to say these people recently arrived for the very first time, don't believe what they're saying. They don't want these people, these coalition of satellite governments, as I prefer to call them, having the opportunity to directly talk to the people, or via the news media, or to get their own internet websites. Because they may flat out say the truth, that they've been secretly living here over all the years, and over all these years a number of U.S. presidents have known of their existence all along, and that the admirals and generals of the Pentagon, particularly our Joint Chiefs of Staff, they've all known about them over the years. Nope, the lie is that they want told is that they recently arrived for the very first time, and that Barack Obama will be the very first U.S. president to learn of their existence. Getting back to the recruiting, I do not know if it's still going on or not. They might have discontinued it. I just know in my case, after 4.5 days, it did not work out. They did take me back home. Whether you not choose to believe it or not, that's entirely up to you. The big reason why I'm making this video is it is a key part of the agenda of certain groups of extraterrestrials that they are and have been recruiting people as young as 13 to be taken to other planets for the purpose of colonization, never to return. Given even the opportunity to return, they may not want to, because as I later learned during my orientation recruiting, that it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 years to reach the other planet they plan on taking you to. So of course you got to undergo extensive physical therapy so that you can, as they put it, walk out of the ship under your own power once the ship lands at its destination. But I do hope that when the ETs do make their presence known in a very big way, supposedly as they promised to do, that one of the key issues that will be brought up and discussed is the recruiting of young people, so young, taken to other planets, and what ultimately became of them, because clearly their parents did not know and were not told what happened. The kids simply disappeared. The parents never got to see them again, and they certainly are entitled to an explanation of whatever became of their children. So any point in closing, I hope you will consider checking out my website. I also have an email address. If you want, you can email me directly. I'll try to be a little more specific about what the recruiting entailed. But for right now, this is Capt Kirk Skywalker saying, my motto is, the truth is at hand, it's only a matter of how I go about explaining it.